Welcome in. I'm glad you found me this evening. I am here with my special guest, Eddie Mattingly. He's going to be joining me tonight as we talk about all things Georgia football, as it is officially football season. A lot of good things to talk about with Coach Smart, with the football team practicing for today. And we're going to, if you stick around, we'd love to be able to show you a little running back preview that we're going to be doing this evening as well. So stick around. Welcome in. You have reached Coach Hayes at Coach Hayes Hudl. I'm joined tonight with my special guest, Eddie Mattingly. Most of you probably know him by his handle on Twitter, is Eddie from Ackworth. Welcome into the show tonight, Eddie. I appreciate you joining me. How you doing this evening, buddy?
Man, I'm great, Coach. I really appreciate you bringing me on the show and just talking football. You know why? Because football season is here. Finally, we've been waiting for it, right? I mean, we just wait forever and ever, and it's finally here. And then the bad part is it's over before you know it, right? It just goes by so quickly. But thank you so much for allowing me to come on your show. I appreciate it.
Hey, it's a pleasure. I always enjoy having guests on. I love to hear the different takes on what's going on. And for the most part, we have been listening to a lot in the talking season part from all football genres. I mean, when you look at everybody that's spectating what was going to happen in the SEC, to different players that are already talking up and really creating a lot of chat from other fan bases saying, hey, we're here to stay. You know, I look at Vanderbilt's quarterback, Castellanos coming from Boston College to Florida State, talking trash to Alabama. I mean, we got all sorts of things happening with us. And, I'm really excited to get you on the mic tonight to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that Coach Smart talked about in his first presser today before they practiced. And obviously the running back room, that's something that's been sort of a misnomer where we're not sure where they really stand due to injuries and things of that nature and what the status is for them this year. So before we really dive into that, the people who are joining us tonight live, whether you're here on Facebook, if you see us on Twitter X, if you see us on YouTube, please make sure to put your chats into the chat room. We would be glad to put those up on the screen and entertain those tonight. That's what makes this live show more important to me than anything, is to be able to interact with those people who come in and taking their time after they got hopefully a full belly of supper and get a chance to catch what we're talking about. Eddie, first off, I wanted to let you just kind of talk about what's going on right now with you and where can people find you at?
Well, like you said, I'm at Eddie from Ackworth, excuse me. And it's not EDDIE, which is really my name. It's EDDY because there's not enough characters to do that on Twitter. So that's why I shortened it to that. But I'm with UGA Sports, and we do a show on Sunday nights at 7:30, the Peach State Power Hour with Andy Stowe. And we got a new guy with us, Harrison Reno, who actually writes a lot for the site. He's very close to the UGA program, so make sure you follow him. But 7:30 on Sunday nights, and the nice thing about our show, Coach, is that we talk about not only UGA, and that drives the bulk of the show. Mm-hmm. We try to hit all the sports in Georgia. We talk a little bit of Falcons, we talk a little bit of Braves, we talk a little bit of Hawks actually in the off season. So that's fun for me because I'm a lifer here. I love all those local teams. We don't talk about Tech, right? That's unless we beat them, right? Then we talk about them, right? Exactly. So it's been a lot of fun. Roddy Nabolsi heads up the UGA Sports site, and the nice thing about it, they did a combination with On3 Sports. So now you get, with your membership, you get On3 Sports, the Rivals site, and the UGA Sports site. And just a quick plug, for $1 now for a week, you get not only access to everything on the site, but you get a full year membership to the Athletic, which is really good because there's some incredible writers on the Athletic. Great stuff that I follow there. So there you go. There's a cheap plug for you, Coach.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. Anyway, I can. What I've learned in this business as I've started it, as most of you probably know, I am a teacher by trade. I taught and coached for 20 plus years now. I'm strictly in the teaching category. And, being in education, I've always looked at the connection and networking that I've done since I've started doing this type of work. And to me, that's what this is most important about. Anytime you can interconnect someone, you don't realize you may be setting up someone with a great opportunity somewhere else. Just like before the show, we give a shout out to John Smith. John is someone that was definitely someone who mentored, you and me both.
John Tweet Sports.
Yeah, at John Tweet Sports. And, I sit there and think about just all the things that he's helped me with. So a shout out to John, kind of a huge shout out for a thank you out there too. I see some people in the chat already. Mike, we're back in. Let's see what we got here. Glad you're back, Coach. Looking forward to the show. Definitely. We appreciate you being in here with us. And Evan, my boy Evan, let's go. Harrison is a stud. I like what you have to say there, my kid. If you get a chance, something that we're going to be doing tonight, most of you may know, and I'm going to plug this a little bit later. You see the jerseys behind me. I'm really looking to put people into a raffle and be able to have a drawing for free, basically a free merch that you can receive. I've got jerseys and helmets that are signed and authenticized that you can actually win for if I can get some, those super chats in the channel for the subs. So I appreciate it if you do that. And if you do, I'm looking to enter you into that raffle and be able to help maybe give away some free merch as well. But we'll be talking about that later in the show.
Hey, Coach, one more thing. I just want to plug you and thank you for allowing me to come on the show. And please, everyone that's watching the show, follow Coach, because I have learned more. I tell you one thing I learned, Coach, that I started watching you, green grass. I never knew how important green grass was. And now when I watch football games, I look and I say, there's a lot of green grass right there. And inevitably, that's where the play goes, right? Yeah. And I'm a fan. I'm not an analytical football. I played in high school, but come on. I mean, that's as far as I took it. You're an analytical guy. Follow Coach Hayes. You would learn a lot about football, and I appreciate that about you, Coach.
I appreciate you telling me, that means a lot to me. And that's the reason why I do what I do, Eddie. It's been a pleasure to be able to, that's what my mantra is to connect fans to the fundamentals of football. And that's what it's done for a lot of people. And I think that's what drives what I do. So that's definitely appreciated on my side. And I appreciate you again being here with us tonight. I do want to show this question because as things go, I told you the interaction is very important before we dive into this. Who's a player that we all have a big impact that no one's talking about yet? So I'm going to put a pin in that. Coach T912, 912 area code. You must be down in South Georgia. I know that area code when I was down at Valdosta State. But I'm going to put a pin in that, Coach T912. We'll come back to that a little bit later. What I want to do, as you can see, this is today's presser before Coach Smart went out to basically chew ass with the first practice of the day with these guys in pads and shells, basically. And we got to see some first pictures of new players and as well as old players too. And, there was a lot of decent questions, about 15 minutes that he was on the mic talking to the press. And, the one thing that I was really stumped on, because something that he left out sort of vaguely while he was at SEC Media Days is, even though I know Gunnar Stockton was one of his three choices to be out there to represent the University of Georgia, I was really curious to why. There was never anybody that just really put just a staple in about, hey, is Gunnar Stockton your quarterback? Now, for the previous years, I know that there's been sort of this Stetson run, and then, of course, Carson having his run. And it was really something that prior to Stetson, he left it vague all the time. It's open competition all the way up to the first game. I think that we are back into that mindset because he hasn't actually named a starter. And as you and I talked pre-show, he did not declare that today as well. He never got a question about that, right?
He did not. And I was very curious to see if that question was going to come up, and it never came up, right? I don't know if they were afraid to ask him that or what, but that he, how Kirby is sometimes. You get a question, he'll lash out, right? And he may have lashed out at that. Who knows? But I think it's a good thing, Coach. I mean, I like that. And who knows? He may go all the way up to the Marshall game and not declare Gunnar the starter. You and I and everybody watching this probably know Gunnar's the starter, right? I mean, it's not Puglisi based on experience, leadership, all those kinds of things. But I think that's good in two aspects. One, it keeps Gunnar on his toes, right? He's right. Like, and maybe I'm wrong about that, Coach. They tell Gunnar behind the scenes he's the starter. I don't know. So maybe that's crazy to say that, but from my perspective, it keeps Gunnar on his toes. And two, it keeps Puglisi, his mind going, okay, he's literally one play away anyway, but I've got to prepare every day like I'm the starter. And that's what Gunnar has been doing for 4 years now. Exactly. We even heard that today from some of the players that were interviewed that Gunnar has, Oscar Delp, he said that. That's exactly right. Gunnar's been ready to play from day one. He prepares like a starter. I love that mentality, and that's going to continue, hopefully, for Puglisi and other players behind him.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things to say. Evan Grimes said that Jaden Reddle is, I think he's answering Coach T912. I think Jaden Reddle is someone not being talked about. And, when you mentioned this, Evan, I do. That's what I was talking about. I think as Stetson came from his last year, there was no doubt that they were going to name him the starter, and then Carson Beck, of course, as well. But I kind of agree with Eddie here. I think there is this mindset that he is going to leave it vague to let them know that the competition still needs to be there. But, believe it or not, I've said this since basically early spring. I think it's the best competition and the most healthiest competition we've had at quarterback in a long time. And I don't think anybody's really sweating the fact that he's not going to name Gunner, but we all know because of what you said, he's been preparing for this for so long. We've already seen some small sample sizes from him as well. And I think that's what makes it more relevant, that we all have this intuition. We know who QB1 is going to be, but I think it's healthy to make Pug continue to push because you don't want that complacency. We don't want the loss of chemistry in the locker room. And honestly, I don't think that actually happens this year at all anyway. I have to give you a little laugh here, Eddie. Andy obviously had to chime in here and say, who is this old man?
Well, he may be talking about you. How do you know he's talking about me?
That's okay. I see.
That's not very clear, is it?
I know he was a little vague on that, was he not?
Yeah. He'll clear it up in just a second. You wait.
I'm sure. Coach T912, yes, sir, and to keep it Gunner level and hungry. I agree with that. I mean, that's natural. Anytime you breed competition within your practices, you are going to naturally have that PFE, as he talks about, passion, fire, and energy that you want to see. And I'm telling you, he came out and said, we're younger this year because they kind of wanted to focus on that as well. But he said, but they're hungry. And I don't know. If you sit here and look at him on screen, I just see in his eyes, it seems to be this like, I think he feels good about where they're going into this fall practice. He just looks to be ready to go. He looks focused, laser focused. He had good questions, I thought, that were pretty crisp to what the pressers asked. And he seems to be in a good mindset. And I think the kids have put him there based on his responses in the presser, as well as what he has witnessed and watched over the summer with workouts and things that people are doing voluntarily as well. Anything else to add to that?
Yeah, just real quick on what I want to see this year. So we did not see it last year, Coach. We saw Gunner played in the Clemson game, the UMass game, and Tennessee Tech before he was called upon, after Carson Beck's injury. And then he played 6 quarters after that of real meaningful football. That was a disappointment to me. Okay. Yeah. Kentucky, I'll say it now, the Tech game. There's other games where Carson Beck should have been on the sidelines at halftime, yucking it up with his buddies, and Gunner's out there getting real experience. That did not happen. Okay. Yeah. Right now, you look at Marshall, Austin Peay, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Charlotte, and I'll say it, Tech. That's 6 games I just named right there. Ryan Puglisi should be getting meaningful minutes in those games. That's what I pray happens this year. We got to have that.
We do, and I think that's something that helps tremendously. Those slow first starts, those first and second quarter starts, and we're having to play from behind a lot. I mean, we never had those meaningful reps that you want to see your 2s and sometimes even 3s get, even in games where you needed to be up 3 or 4 touchdowns. Like you said, the games you named, there's definitely at least 3 or 4 on the schedule where we should be blowing teams out to where we get that honest repetition. In-game reps beats anything that's in on the practice field 100%. at any given time. So,
and some of that's on the defense, Coach. It wasn't just the offense; it's on the defense too.
True that. Going forward though, I was going to look real quick. I've got some more questions on here, guys. I can't thank you enough for your comments into the chat as well. Yeah, you're right. When they're young and they're hungry, it's scary because, he made a comment the other day or today that it was really nice for them to not know what the longevity of the program really is because the freshness of the group is so young and they don't know what it's like to be in that mentality of the national champion, even just 3 years removed from the national championship. I think that's what makes this group special. And I've got 225 girl chiming in as well. Go Dawgs, welcome in. Appreciate you on the show. And here's Andy coming back in to clarify.
I told you. I knew he clarified.
Good deal. Well, I'm going to say one thing. As Coach Smart talked, the one thing that he mentioned that I thought was very unique, when you look at the difference between Gunner and Ryan, I think there's definitely qualities and specs that both of them bring to the table that's so much, I think if you look at Gunner, you see that he is a processor and beginning to do that very well. He's obviously reading the field very nicely. He throws a very good long ball, and he also can be a +1 quarterback in the box to run the football. So there's a lot of things they can do now that allows him to be, if he's reading it correctly, to actually be a running quarterback that's very tough as nails. Ryan obviously has good processing skills, has an elite arm too, can throw the long ball. I think he layers the ball better than Gunner Stockton does, but I don't think Puglisi will surprise you. It's kind of like what Carson did, when he's flushed out of the pocket and has to run. I mean, he impressed with speed. He showed that in the G-Day game. But I don't think he's that quarterback that you're going to develop your offense around and saying, okay, we've got a +1 quarterback here that we can run with as a running back type that reads off whatever the end does. And, he pulls and runs just like a running back would. But anyhow, so when I look at the two and I sit there and think to myself, because I'm a big Puglisi fan too, I have continued to be a Puglisi fan. He just needs to tighten it down. He needs to learn the processing skills and develop for another year under coach and get just better reps against better defense, because he's going to be facing them a lot in practice. And, just take every day like what Gunner's done through the Stetson Bennett and the Carson Beck years. Prepare yourself every day to be QB1. And when you finally get there, you're ready to take that on. But there was one thing that Coach Smart said when he was in his presser today. I'm going to go back to the screen here. He made one mention. This is a little nugget that I heard that made me realize we know who QB1 is going to be, because he made a comment specifically about how that person, there's an ability to run the football with your QB. And he didn't say the QB specifically, but he talked about the presence of the quarterback having the ability to run. And you say, well, that could be any quarterback. Nah, that's Gunner Stockton. That's one of his specs that I think really helps him, is that when all of a sudden you've got to account for him as a running back, but also, doing all the throwing and 3 and 5 step drop game and all that as well, it truly puts a lot of pressure when you have a quarterback that can scramble after you've played the best defensive stand ever, and all of a sudden he breaks a 3rd and 7 and scoots for 12. That breaks defenses' hearts when you have a quarterback that can do that. And I think that's what he brings, not only with his processing skill, his tenure, his leadership, and obviously his toughness and his grit. What a quarterback with just unbelievable moxie, I think, helps us. And, we're not going to really know exactly what's going to come to fruition until, of course, we see him against 2 cupcakes at the beginning of the year. But, what a better way to get prepared and continue to get better. And hopefully we don't, overflow the mentality if he does go out there and blow it up. But, I hope and pray that as we move forward, that continued drive of what those 2 quarterbacks are doing, just continue to push each other and the rest of the quarterback room, because when you look past Pug, nobody really thinks about Ryan Montgomery anymore being there. You got Jared Curtis coming up next year. He's not even going to be on the team. You got Coulter Ginn. You got Hezekiah Millender. I mean, those guys are going to be that. I mean, that's a good quarterback room. They've got great depth. They've got guys getting reps every day. And Coach Smart's already going to say, I need at least 4 positions out there. They got 5 if Ryan's back healthy with his ACL. So I think that's why we probably need to go ahead and, kind of lock in that we definitely are going to see 14 back there as QB1 when the season starts. So I just think that's the mentality that I have towards it. And like I said, I think a lot of the fan base out there has it as well. Any closing thoughts on that?
Well, I'm so excited that we finally have, since Stetson Bennett. I'm not knocking Carson Beck. He was a different type of quarterback. But when things break down, Gunner can take off, much like Stetson Bennett did, right? And that is such a huge weapon. But he's not going to be like Jalen Milroe, which is basically, guy's not open, I'm taking off. That was what Jalen – now, he torched us in the first half with that, right? He was like a running back, basically. That's not what I envision Gunner Stockton being. But to have that weapon – if anything, just to move off the spot a little bit or move up in the pocket quickly, right? He's got the legs to do that. And if he sees an opening, he's going to take it. We saw that against Texas when he took that opening and got absolutely blasted. And what did he do, Coach? You even mentioned that. Got right back up. Okay. He could have probably played the next play. Now, they wouldn't have let him, right? Yeah. But the way he acted after that, he's like, let's go. I'm ready. It doesn't bother him. And I love that mentality. That's like Tim Tebow, and we've been dying for that kind of quarterback right here to
Mhm.
go out there and ball out and run the ball like that when necessary. I love that.
Yeah, and that's the moxie you want to see in your quarterback, and I
Mhm.
think that's what builds the brand of your locker room, and I think that's the reason why you see so many rallying around them
Oh, yeah.
as well. I was going to go to a couple of comments here. I've got another one here from Coach T912. I like the first game, but the first game on the road at Tennessee, I'm very excited to see. I think it's perfect that we actually have the two games
Perfect.
against Marshall and Austin Peay to basically get our feet wet, to see the new design of what we're going to see in this new receiver core with Gunnar Stockton behind
Mhm.
5 linemen that we hope and pray are going to be the best 5 out there that we've projected to see. And like Monroe Freeland, Ernest Green, Micah Morris, Daniel Calhoun, and Drew Bobo. But when it comes down to it, I think that perfectly sets up, because that's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere for him to play in for his first SEC game of his career going forward. I know he played against Texas, came in for Carson Beck, but like I said, this is his first full year with this team under his belt, and
Can you
that to me is
imagine? Can you imagine this, Coach? Last year, just take this everything, and we'll go back to last year. The first game against Clemson. My stomach's already in knots thinking about a new center and a new quarterback playing Clemson. Right? What a perfect scenario for Gunnar and Bobo going into Marshall, Austin Peay, and then Tennessee on
and
the
then
road.
Tennessee.
Yeah, and like I said, hopefully by halftime of those two games, Gunnar and Bobo, Gunner's put up a bunch of yards. Bobo's played a flawless game at center, and we're ready to roll for Tennessee. That's the perfect scenario for this year.
I agree with you on that. I am going to have to. I wanted to leave Andy's comment up here. Kirby said that. He said Gunner adds to the running game, and they didn't have that last year. You're exactly right, Evan. I'm funny. I'm going to be appreciative of your donation of the $4.99 for the super chat. I'll definitely put your name into the entry for the drawing of what we're going to be drawing for. But obviously, he's giving Eddie a little hell there for mentioning
Why?
Tim
Tebow
Tebow.
was phenomenal. He had our number.
Yeah, but like I said, I guess when it comes to them lousy, stinking Gators, I know there's a
I
lot of them out there that
we hate them.
We hate them. I want to go real quick, one more before we head into the next segment here. To be honest, I like how the offense is really set up for Gunner to have a great year. There's a lot of playmakers around him. I agree with you on that. I really do think it solidifies from the offensive line standpoint. And the fact if we have a solid run game, that's the reason why I wanted to talk about the running back room tonight, because I really do think that, we can talk about offensive line, and I'm going to try to stay away from the offensive line because I really want to see what is happening in our running back room. But you're right. I mean, our offensive line does their job and starts moving people the way we're used to them moving people. And you've got the running backs doing their job as well. When you have a solid ground game and we're not 15th in the SEC like we were last year, the only team worse than us was LSU in rushing yards per game at 100. I think it was a hundo and a quarter there, about a 125. And
I have it. When we get to that, I have it.
Okay, good deal. I'm glad you could throw that out there for me. But, we've got to get back to the running tradition that we're used to seeing in Georgia so that it does set up the play action. It does set up your passing game. And I think that even helps Gunner even more as we move into the season. As we segue real quick, as you noticed, I put Evan up on the screen with his super chat. I had the wonderful opportunity to meet some great guys this weekend. The owners, Roger Sutton and Sam Mathis from Georgia Sports Autographs. I went into Athens and was able to sit behind the scenes to actually see what goes on with an autograph signing. We had a public signing that day where we had patrons coming in from 11 to 1. And then these guys were signing all sorts of different paraphernalia, from helmets to mini helmets to jerseys and posters. It was just a really cool time to be able to sit back there and actually get to talk to these young men. I was able to sit down with Zachariah Branch, Ellis Robinson, and Nate Frazier, and not only just talk about the general purpose of the business of what was going on that day, but I was able to actually sit down and talk a little ball. It was really cool to see that Ellis Robinson's a very quiet kid. I know he's probably not quiet around his friends, but he's a very humble kid. Nate right there never shut up. He absolutely talked the entire time he was there. I love him. Just very, animated in what he does, but he's very loving and caring, taking care of his siblings while he was there, making sure they were getting DoorDash their lunch that afternoon. And then had, Zachariah Branch, who really, I talked about his brother as much as I did with Zachariah. Just really a great opportunity to meet these young men, to see their personalities, their dispositions, the way they carry themselves. And I tell you guys, if the team carries the money like these kids are, I am really impressed with that overall. So I wanted to make sure that you guys got a chance to see what I got to be a part of. And with Roger Sutton, Sam Massis, thank you again. As you can see behind me here, what Evan just put in for the super chat in the chat room is it gives him a free entry where I'm going to enter you guys into a raffle, and we're going to be pulling something from what I got from Roger and Sam while we were doing the autograph signing on Saturday. So Evan, I've got you in. I appreciate that, and like I said, go Dogs with that. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Sam. Appreciate the time. All right. As we move to our next segment here of Hayes' Hudl, what I wanted to do, and I know I don't have all the running backs up here because there's obviously more than just those three, but I really thought with the addition of what we got to see in the spring, because they were still dealing with Josh McCray wasn't there yet. Roderick Robinson was still coming off his injury. They had to use Dwight Phillips a lot more, and we got a chance to see a lot of Bo Walker. A lot of people are interested in Bo Walker because they know what he can do, and he did show out in the spring. But you know what, guys? He had to show out in the spring. They didn't have any depth at the running back position in the spring. They roughly had three guys in, Cash Jones, Dwight Phillips, Nate Frazier, and Chauncey Bowens. And, Rob was still hurt, and the kid from Illinois wasn't here yet. And what I wanted to do was basically take you through each one of these segments as we go. Now, I'm going to get your reflection on the flip side of this, Eddie, but is there anything that you want to preface with this before I dive into it real quick?
Well, I'm sure you know the answer to this, Coach. I'll put you on the spot. So Nate Frazier, as a freshman, had 671 yards and 8 TDs last year. And we all know ETN, he had some injury issues, but he was 609 with 9. Do you know who the next running back after them had the most yards? Do you know who it was?
I know that oh my goodness. I know it's not Dwight and Chauncey. Cash Jones didn't have a lot of rushing yards either. Goodness.
Not even close yet.
Carson Beck.
Nope. No.
Was
Dylan Bell? It was Dylan Bell. He had
receiver.
107 yards. He was the third most yards. Can you believe that? Does that not tell you how decimated our running back room was? I just was floored when I looked that up. Now, Branson, he only had 1 TD. Branson had 3 TDs, but Branson didn't have any yards to speak of. So, I mean, come on. We were just, like I said, just decimated at the running back room.
Yeah, Cash Jones, believe it or not, I was looking that information up earlier. Cash Jones had a ton of yards receiving, Evan. He put into the chat right here, Cash Jones.
He didn't have many running. He didn't have many running, though. I think it's like 15 yards.
Yeah, it's 27 yards on 14 carries. He had over 275 yards receiving, though, and that's what's going to be part of my platform when you see this here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to show you a breakdown. Thank you, Eddie, on that, by the way. I'm going to go through about a 3-minute segment on each running back. And what I want to be able to do here, I'm not putting them up there in order of how I think they're going to start. I am just putting them up randomly, one behind the other, and objectively talking about each one of them. So before any of you think that I'm making a depth chart here, I am not. It is definitely just my own objective opinion towards each one of these. But the running back room has to change this year. First off, staying healthy. And secondly, we have to have the ability to use those offensive linemen up front, if they're executing correctly, to maximize each run that you have. We haven't had a lot of explosives in a while, but, it's one of those things that I think any one of the backs can do that. I mean, if Kendall Milton can run away from an Ole Miss defense on a Saturday night, I know these big bruising backs that we have to complement more of the fast backs that we have can do it as well, but we need to see more of that. So the first one I'm going to hit on here is Josh McCray. Now, he is out of Enterprise, Alabama. He's from down south, even though he played up at Illinois. So he knows this humidity and heat that he's going to be dealing with over the next weeks or so. So I'm not worried about that. The one thing I look at him, he complements Roderick Robinson a lot. To me, those two backs really have the same size, stature, specs. They're roughly the same height, the same weight. What I noticed with him is he runs like a low center of gravity bowling ball. He has a very good vision that I like. He's not going to necessarily run away from anybody. We saw that against South Carolina. He had a couple of good runs in the bowl game against South Carolina last year, but he's not going to run away from anybody. But what he can do is take the poundage of the SEC. The SEC is going to pound on him, and when you have those lightning guys that are out there running for a couple of plays and you want to put him in on a 3rd and short or 2nd and short and see what he can do, I think this is someone that can complement that run game very well, because when you've got a 220-pound kid, 225-pound kid at 6'1", he is going to definitely cause a lot of problems in the mismatching. And that's the reason why the running back room is so important when you have guys that are healthy that also can contribute, because when they go out there, they execute and they bruise people, because you can wear people down. We've heard of the Kirby death march before, and I think he's one of those that fits that profile. But I'm excited to see what his transition to the University of Georgia is going to be like. And obviously, to me, running back wise, a lot of people say, well, he's from the transfer portal, he's got to pick up the offense. Really, the running back position is one of the more easier ones to pick up, because the way I look at it, what I want to see out of him, I want to see him having the ability to be a good pass blocker. He's got that when you stay in the box with 6 in the box, when you get blitz pressure. I want to see, we know he can run the football an average of about 5.5 yards per carry, which I like. He had about roughly what Nate had last year, just south of 700 yards. But still, though, nonetheless, I really feel like he is going to be a great complement for this year. And honestly, I think that if, Roderick Robinson can't get back on par with where he was, which we all want him to be as fans, I think he really complements that very well. And definitely, if we've got both of these guys healthy, they're going to be able to ground and pound all the way down the field, especially when you want some of those death marches where the offensive line is doing their job and executing and putting him in good shape. So this is Josh McCray, a transfer portal guy from Illinois, who is going to be in the running back room this year, coming in as a first-year kid transfer. Like I said, from Enterprise, Alabama. I'm really excited to see what he can do, running and catching the ball in the backfield, as you can see here. Now, next, Cash Jones. We love Cash Money. But, the thing is you watch this tape with me as I broke this tape down runs, as we looked at a while ago. I know Evan had mentioned that a while ago. Believe it or not, he carried the ball 14 times for only 27 yards all season. This is what's in safeties, and that's not necessarily the case. It's not always going to be in that case scenario, but it does need to be diversified so that you don't have tendencies when he's on the field, because he shows out of the backfield angle, choice option, quick out, speed out, arrow route. He's critical in the Georgia Tech game. He converted 2 different first down plays and, of course, caught the rail route for a touchdown as well from Carson. I mean, we don't win that ball game without Cash Jones. So you can't really put this saying, well, he can't help us in the run game. But I tell you what, he definitely adds a different dimension when you want to go empty or motion to empty and have 5 receivers in the progression and you've got him lined up against a running back, because he's shown he's tough as nails. He does his job. He goes out there. He loves his team, and he stayed here for the longevity of the course. And I think he benefits us in so many different ways. But as you watch on film here, you can see that the majority, if not all, is our catches out of the backfield, where, as we mentioned a while ago, 24 receptions, 24 for 275 yards. That is Cash Jones, who's going to be a staple for us in the running back room, and I'm sure is going to be a great leader for that group of guys that we see this year.
Hey, Coach, can I ask you a question on Cash while you got him on here?
Go ahead.
So
let's run what we worked on in practice with.
So Kirby knows that. I mean,
yeah,
he's
without a
stupid,
doubt,
right? When he puts him on the field, we got to run some run plays with Cash in, right?
That one run play where he'll get stuffed in the backfield or something. They're like, why are we running it with Cash Jones? Well, it's because we have to show that we're going to give him the football in the backfield. He's not he can run the football. Right. I do agree with you. Carl Wins in the chat. Appreciate your Cash is Cash Money. I love that. And of course, he says a good blocker too. That's something, as we know, Coach Smart wants a guy that's in the backfield that can pass pro with his line. Help us with
little slant he made against the linebacker, and then he broke 3 tackles. Phenomenal play. What a great play.
And he's tough. You watch him when he gets tackled.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, believe it or not, he looks small, but it takes a lot to bring him down. Look at that little shimmy right there too. So, I mean, that's the beauty of what I love in these kids. And I think it's just that passion, the fire and energy that Coach Smart talks about. And he brings that every day. And that's the reason why you want him. If I'm a running backs coach, if I'm Josh Crawford, I want him in my running back room. He is definitely someone that benefits being in there too. All right, next side to the running back room, because he got the opportunity to step up this spring due to injury. I have noticed that Chauncey has lost a little weight. He is a little more fleet of foot this year. And I've noticed, even though you won't see it as much on film because this is last year, I think his patience and waiting on setting up blocks in the hole, because he does run very hard downhill. And what made me realize was in the spring game is that he ran a mesh route out of the backfield and was coming across the formation to the other side. and caught a football basically going from the hash to the numbers. And he realized his guy was right on his hip. When he caught the football, he put his foot in the ground, pivoted, and made that guy miss and got back to full speed instantly. And that was something I didn't think Chauncey had the ability to do. That really made me feel like, believe it or not, I think Chauncey has the most upside this year to complement our running back room more than anybody in the running back room. That's my call this year. What Chauncey does is I love the fact that he runs downhill hard. When he commits to the hole and he takes his foot and puts it in the ground and gets north and south, there's no hesitation to what he wants to do. I think he likes to punish on impact when people come up, and he's always to that was basically during some cleanup time, the very little cleanup time that we had. And it's very similar, Eddie. I think it's the same way with your running backs. You want all these guys to be able to get out there and get those game reps, to be able to see what they can do in live action. That's what they play the game for. That's why they practice the game as well. So, Chauncey is someone that I think, even though he doesn't have a lot of film from last year on my cut-ups that I broke down, I think he has the most upside of the running backs in the running back room next year. And he's probably the one that we're going to be talking the most about. I wanted to go back to that question that the gentleman asked at the very beginning, who's someone we're not talking about necessarily right now. I think it's Chauncey Bowens. I think we're going to be really excited about how he complements the running backs in the backfield and adds to that running game that we want to see so promising from, the years of watching Georgia football. This one right here, if you don't put a pin in it, it's going to run by because it's very quick here. This is Dwight Phillips. What I'm going to do is pause this and bring it back to the beginning here. This was basically the only play, Peanut as they call him. He was also in the class with Chauncey and Nate. He's kind of a gadget guy. He kind of reminds me of what Cash is going to do. The only thing is that when they did this with him, this is what they handed to him every time. It was jet sweep, bam. And this was his touchdown against Florida. The next play is really quick too. I'm going to pause it. You can see he's actually already got the ball right here. I don't know if you can actually see my cursor on the screen, but with him getting the ball right here, and they're faking the dive downhill right here. He's coming off the edge here too. He's coming towards us on the screen, and he gets up in there as well. And this is how they utilized him, was on jet. This is against Georgia Tech. Same thing. I know I put him on Hudl because I wanted you to see from his senior year, even though I know he's 2 years removed from that now. He can fly. This kid is an unbelievable track athlete. He does run high. And I know that's probably the reason why that they're trying to work in more gadget, because if he can ever hit the hole, I mean, you look and see him getting north and south. I mean, he runs away from people. He's got unbelievable speed, and I think he's someone that can definitely contribute. But it's, again, Coach Bobo and staff trying to figure out how can we implement this kid into our offense to where we get a play like this right here. Because I'm going to tell you, if he can find that hole, he will get to the zone. He is that fast. He is a fast kid, and I do think he's going to be contributing. And it's going to be probably in some follow-up time when it's third and fourth quarter and we're up some. But still, though, they do trust him now because he has beefed up a little bit this year. Yeah. And because of the spring and having some injuries, he got a chance to carry the ball a lot. And so we don't know. You never know. He might be someone that we're talking a little bit about too. But the buzz with him. Like I said, very fast kid, just being able to how to implement him in the offense. That is Dwight Phillips. All right, next film is the previous year. He had 24 carries for 196 yards, and a lot of that improves. He's going to, the majority of the stuff that we're watching here is from the 2023 season. And like I said, he stays healthy. I think he adds to, he's probably waiting on. Now, I know you're probably saying, what about Bo Walker? I'm not going to hit on Bo right now because I didn't have very much footage of him. I got to see him in the G-Day game. But Bo is one of those, I think, that is just going to get that playing time probably at the end of ball games when we need him in the third and the fourth quarter. And we'll see some hype from him, I'm sure. But the reason why we talked about him so much in the spring and why he was brought up so much is he impressed because he had to. There was nobody else. They were depleted because of injuries in the running back room. So, I think we're still going to hear good things about him. But because if everybody stays healthy, I just think you've got, right now, better players in front of him as well. So the last one I want to talk about is the man with a plan, Mr. Nate Frazier. Obviously RB1 this year, should be RB1 this year based on what he had. He also, due to attrition last year, had to step up quickly. When you have, Branson Robinson and Roderick Robinson hurt, and you got Trevor Etienne as your bell cow, and he comes in. I mean, all of a sudden he had to grow up in a hurry. But I knew that he was going to be special before he even stepped into a Georgia uniform. I could tell it by the way he played. And he showed it because he has the ability to do a lot of good things from the backfield. The one thing that I would say, other than elite vision and obviously great speed and the ability to have an explosive to take it to the house, so fast he'll cut off the wrong foot and he'll fall down like he does right there. He's so fast. But he's got to trust his feet better when he's really wanting to make those cuts, because his feet, definitely it's a blessing, but it's also a curse if it's too fast and you end up cutting off the wrong foot. But we all know his size. I really thought that Nate was more my height. When I had a picture made with him in the at the autograph, solid as a rock. And, that's the one thing. I think the SEC poundage is going to be something that helps. And if we stay healthy, I think Roderick Robinson, I think Josh McCray, I think Chauncey Bowens adds the complements that he needs so that he can get his feet underneath him and they can rotate like they have and they can have success and see those explosives we want to see. I think everybody's in the mindset that we've got to have 1,000-yard back. I think we're past that point now. That's the reason why depth is so critical, because if you keep a guy fresh longer, and it helps, with more people getting carries that are, helping you offensively, running the ball and getting more yards per carry and yak yards, or, you give him the opportunity to, exploit defenses with his very quick feet. His wants to be coached hard. He knows he needs to be coached hard. He has high expectations to do well.
Likes to be coached.
Yes, he's not one of those throwing his hands up in the air like Coach Martin back in the spring. I tell you a quick story. It was so funny. He was so upset. He was wearing some Jordans while he was signing autographs, and somehow the pen fell out of his hand and the marker hit his shoe on the toe.
Oh, no.
And you would have thought he cut his big toe off. It was hilarious. They was trying to get that.
That's funny.
Trying to get that marker off of his shoe. Luckily, it hit the leather part, so we were able to get it off. But kids.
Yeah,
exactly. That's what I'm saying. As a fan, you look at it, and I sit there and think to myself, these are still 18, 19-year-old kids.
Yeah,
they're still teenagers, and they're still young and growing up and trying to learn and be better. Yeah. But a lot of people in the chat, I just wanted to go ahead and throw out some things here. See Super Cheese, what we got. Hit that thumbs up, people. Let Coach get Coach more views. Yeah, I appreciate that. Eddie 100%. And I tonight getting after it. I appreciate you being in the chat. 225 girl, Carl. Exactly. We already lost Branson. Would hate to lose another Robinson. Yeah, and the attrition of Branson going to Georgia State, I think, needed to happen just because of the injury bug. Yeah. And Roderick is right there too. I think that's why we have Josh McCray in house as well. Because if Roderick, for some odd reason, can't cut it, that's the reason why we have him there for the depth piece. I need some Robinson. I hear you, Davey Pie 05, no doubt. Lastly, and I'm going to let Eddie talk for a little bit. He got to tighten up on the fumbles, but I'm excited to see how his sophomore season will go. He told me that in our conversation. He said, Coach, I gotta be high and tight more. I got to be high and tight. He said, but, when I'm cutting, he said, I have a bad habit of letting that elbow fly like a golfer. Honestly, what I see personally, I see Nate as one. I see Roderick Robinson and Chauncey fighting for the 2. I think Josh McCray is a rotator in there as well. And, like I said, Dwight Phillips, we're going to be seeing as a gadget player. I really do think he's going to benefit, though, very similar to what Cass Jones is doing in the passing game. And then Bo Walker, we get a chance to watch that little bowling ball run, too, when we're up 40-something to nothing. That's what we should be doing if our running back room is where it needs to be at. So I'm gassed, Eddie. I'm going to let you talk for a second. As I get off the screen here and we're watching just the video of these guys working in the offseason, you can see Chauncey and Nate and Roderick getting after it right here. I just wanted to talk to you real quick that if we had an ideal situation for that room to show that UGA had some success this year with that group, what would it need to look like by the end of the year? What would we say would be a successful year in the running back room?
Well, that was an awesome analysis. And I'll say the last thing you said about Nate Frazier, he had some fumble issues. He was 18 years old last year, and he was relied upon basically in the Clemson game and from there on, right? Because ETN was hurt a lot. So I forgive the kid for that. I mean, he had to grow up really fast. Secondly, I want to ask you a quick question before I get into that. Does Dylan Bell ever see the backfield this year as a running back?
I don't.
Or do you think that was just strictly because of the attrition?
I think that's due to the attrition. I would be very
Okay.
surprised if
I would
they.
agree with you. Yeah.
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 But in a perfect world too, because you never know when it's just like in high school with being a coach, you've got your set guys personnel wise. Hey, I've got these 4
Mhm.
dudes. And we're thinking when we write everything down on paper that we've got those 4 dudes for the entire year. And it's just like the quarterback room back in the day when Jacob Eason goes down and Jake Fromm had to step up and do. You
Right.
just don't expect that day
Right.
one. So it's the same principle. You just have to basically stay in a very positive mind frame that these guys are all going to be healthy through the year without
Right.
any issues or setbacks. And to answer your question, I would think that Dylan would be strictly with the wide receivers and be used in that regard because he doesn't need to be used. But you're right. He was used previously just due to that attrition, due to the injuries.
Yeah. So success in the running back room. So you asked this earlier, and I'll tell you right now, we had 124.4 rushing yards per game last season.
That's pretty close.
Okay. Yeah, you were close. You know what we had previous to that? 191. Previous to that, 205. Previous to that, 190. So we steadily gone down, right? And last year was terrible. Now I say that you know what I mean, but the most glaring thing to me, Coach, about that, I could accept that if we got first downs, but every time I watch this team play football, it seemed like last season we were constantly behind the sticks. Every time it seemed like we'd call a running play, you could see it coming, and we'd get right back to the line of scrimmage, lose a yard, maybe gain a yard. That's not good when you're in 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10, right? And then secondly, with that, I rewatched a Tech game a few nights ago. Just watched it. There's a 22-minute thing on YouTube where you can watch the whole game. Still don't know how we won that doggone football game, but we did. Thank goodness. There was a play in that game. You'll remember this, Coach, when it was 4th and 1, and we were on their side of the field in the first half, right? We'll pick this up. No problem. We got stuffed. How many times did that happen last year where you should have gotten 1 yard to get a first down and get some points out of the drive? And remember, in that game in the first half, we had 0 points against Tech, right?
Against Tech.
So is that the Roderick Robinson? I don't think that's Nate Frazier because that's who got the ball in that situation. He didn't get that. Now, I'm not blaming Nate. He's just not that type of running back. That's Roderick Robinson. That's Josh McCray next year, right? Getting that 1 or 2 yards. And I even saw, you didn't play it, but Josh McCray had a couple plays last year where he jumped over the pile into the end zone, right? That old school Walter Payton type of thing.
Right.
That's what I love to see, that bowling ball mentality you said. And I think it's both Roderick Robinson and Josh McCray. That's huge going into this season.
Without a doubt. Those are very good points that you make too. I know it seems crazy. You think Division I football, just right below subpar to the NFL. You've got elite level $1 million coaches coaching these guys. You've got this elite talent from all over the United States. And I sit there and think to myself, did we buffer ourselves or back ourselves into a corner with Carson Beck coming back after his 2023 campaign and say, listen, this guy's got a chance, it was obvious in his Lamborghini deals and in the NIL that he got, that we were really putting a lot of our, we kind of pushed our chips in on him and he disappointed. Sometimes as coaches, you can say, listen, we're going to probably up our game this year. We're looking at probably throwing 35 plus times a game. So when you do that, what do you got to work on more in practice if you're throwing it 35 to 40 times a game? Your pass pro has to be sound. Your running backs have to communicate with your linemen. And all of a sudden, every snap, tackles are, kick sliding and guards and centers are comboing. And you've got that mentality every play. There's not this line down, hand in the ground. And I'm sure they had those Indy times as well for inside drill, but you just don't spend as much time doing that because you're looking to throw at a more unbalanced ratio. And that's something that I want to see. And the reason why I wanted to segue off what you said is I just want to see the balance come back. I want to see that balance of run to pass again that I think is essential to me to make your program be successful. If you can find better balance between the run and the pass game, and that's something that we've got to get back to. And it all starts, like I said, with us staying healthy, as we mentioned. So anyhow, I was going to go to the chat real quick, see if we have anything in here to talk about. What would you blame the slow starts on last year? Wide receiver drops, play calling, bad O-line play, or what? And how does Kirby and Bobo fix that this season? That is a loaded gun question, Eddie. I'm going to let you jump on it first.
Well, I would say he didn't even mention, put that back up, Coach, if you don't mind. So he mentioned basically everything on offense. And all points are valid, but some of that's on the defense too. We talked about that earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Leaving your offense in bad situations. Defense can't make a tackle. Defense allows the other team, Mississippi State, for example, scored a bunch of points. Where did that come from? Well, the defense didn't lock Mississippi State down. But the glaring thing right there is a wide receiver drops. Right. Yes. And I'll say this right now, Coach, there is no way in Hades we're going to lead the nation in drops this year. It's just not going to happen. That was a total one-off. I think it got in their heads. It got in Carson Beck's head. There's no way we're leading the nation in that. And Kirby knows that. They're working on catch drills right now, probably. and Oscar Delp even mentioned that, right? The amount of times that they're catching footballs. So I have no concerns about the drops this year at all.
I'm with you on that. And I'm going to tell you this. When you have a quarterback that has a hard time trusting his receivers, I think there was very limited amount of people. That it gets in your head. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I think hands down, he did not trust Oscar Delp. That's why we saw a lack of him catching the football last year.
Yeah.
And the ones that he did trust, it seemed to me he was always trying to force a square peg through a circle hole because he had drilled himself into the corner. I know as a defensive coordinator, the one thing that I always gave my guys, the accolades for is when we gave the offense a short field. So if we gave them a short field inside on the plus side, so if we made them turn the ball over and we gave it to our offense on the plus side of the field, they got a helmet sticker for that. The entire defense, not just one player, the entire defense. I wanted to reward that. And something you mentioned is that playing from behind and then having the stressful, ability to not trust your receivers as well as you should. Offensive tackle play breaking down to make you have to speed up your processing and throw it quicker than that 4-second window that you want to have. All of a sudden now, all those things come together in a perfect storm, and that's why we seem to have this huge conglomerate of issues. But I agree with you, Eddie. I know Coach Smart. I know Coach Bobo both. That's why they went out and did what they did in the portal, and that's also what they've got coming back. And also they've got a new quarterback this year with unbelievable chemistry. And I know that guy's been working with them hands down till the sun goes down at 9 o'clock at night, throwing on 7-on-7s and throwing them reps, back shoulder throws, and building that chemistry that we want to see. I agree with you 150% that we are not going to see that reproduce itself this year. Exactly. We've got, let's see, send Bobo a message here. You can't drop the ball if you hand it off. That is true, my friend. And I think that's one guy.
Well, actually, you can drop the ball if you hand it off.
Well, that's the reason why you see a lot of these quarterbacks now on the jet sweep throw it forward, because if they drop that, it's actually considered an
That's a good
pass.
point. Good point.
Yeah,
yes.
and that's something they've gone to now on that jet, so you don't actually have a fumble. But, that's something that I see too with Zachariah Branch, and even somebody that, kind of gets lost in the shuffle. I think Sakovi White is another kid that we're not necessarily talking about as much right now with the hype, but I think he's also someone that's going to benefit in that slot position with Zachariah. We're going to see a lot from him this year too. And, one thing Zachariah told me verbatim while he was sitting at the table, he told me he enjoyed Bobo's offense. He said it took him longer to understand it before he even got with Lincoln Riley's offense. He said he liked the fact that when he got here in spring, that what they ran in practice, they executed in the G-Day game. He said everything that we ran in practice, he went out and did in the G-Day game. So everything that I did, he said, I just really like the way he puts things together and how he confuses different defenses that run match. And I'm just listening to him talk. I'm not trying to get anything out of him. And he was really, he, no offense to his, Coach Riley. I mean, he was really nice about the way he said it, but I was just very impressed with his demeanor about that and how he handled it. So all the Bobo
sounds like
haters,
he's got a comfort level already with Bobo,
yes,
right?
He does.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying. I hear all these haters that just seem to think Bobo is the problem. And I'm sitting here listening to this kid, consensus 5-star kid who went to USC and now has come to Georgia under Lincoln Riley and now here at Georgia, and really complimentary of his OC. And of course, what he's getting, happening for him in for the offensive side of the ball. Let's see. I got another question here. If I can get it to pop up. If you think about once Gunner came, the ball really didn't drop as much last year. I think what you see with him is that's the reason why we saw a lot of things change. You saw the entire sidelines. Eddie, remember in the SEC championship game? We all see that storyline. You could see the difference in the dynamics once he came in. It was almost like a fresh breath of air. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, he throws a different ball, and it's a small sample size. Let's be honest; it's 6 quarters of football, right? That's what we
Yep.
saw basically. So
Mm-hmm.
you can't really extrapolate that over a whole year and say, well, he would have had less drops. We don't know that, but I
Yeah.
mean the point. I understand what he's getting at. He throws a different ball. Maybe the players felt a little more comfortable with him. And maybe even Carson said it. He was pressing a little bit, right? Trying to
Yep.
make great throws and trying to be the man and all that kind of stuff that may have weighed in. But like I said, that's in the past. We're not going to lead the nation in drops again. That's going to resolve itself.
Yeah, and I like the way, when you look at that, I think that it just comes down to those drops are going to be. I think what you're going to see more this year is probably a little more inconsistencies, but I think we're going to see a lot more explosive plays this year, and that's something that just comes with timing and real game reps as well. I want to throw. I've got somebody in Facebook that sent me. I've got Josh Skelton. Ball knowers know Bobo isn't the problem. That's very well said, my friend, and appreciate you being able to. And then you switched over there, buddy. You went from Facebook to YouTube. I like that. But like I said, you could have stayed in Facebook. But anyhow, but that's good stuff going forward. I appreciate your insight on that, and just a lot of things that help sort of give us the nice warm fuzzies about what's going to be that team when we get out on the field against Marshall, and how we're going to see all these things come to fruition. And that's what makes college football so fun to me, because those unknown factors that we're thinking about, we want to hypothetically say, hey, if this happens, then we'll get this. But that's what happens in college football that you don't know. And that's what the beauty of it makes it so fun. I wanted to hit on my hunker down session real quickly. Just your 2 cents worth, since we're basically closing in over an hour here. Mark Bowman was a 2026 recruit. This kid is going into his senior year this year, and he was a high tight end recruit for us. It is now, basically been put down, and this kid is going to be making north of $5 million before he even puts on a USC uniform. Thoughts on the fact of, with this, like for example, Jackson Cantwell, who went to Miami, took the big bag. You got Tyler Atkinson going to Texas. We know what happened with Justice Terry last year. Mark Bowman is just another byproduct of this. Does this kind of detail right here show basically someone that's panicking because they want to see more success quicker? Or do you think this is something that we're going to see go down since the House settlement has been put into play? And, we're probably going to see less of these kind of situations, and it's going to kind of even the course out a little bit. What's your thoughts on this little roller coaster ride we're seeing with some of this unprecedented amount of money going out to high school recruits?
Well, my overall 10,000-foot view is it's ridiculous, right? It's just too much money to throw on a kid who's totally unproven. You said he's a junior, right? I mean,
yeah, he'll be a rising
nothing.
senior.
Yeah. So who knows? But I think, Coach, overall, this is going to naturally take care of itself, right? Whoever invests in these kids, let's just say this kid gets hurt or whatever, and he has a career-ending injury. I'm not wishing that on any of these kids, but that could happen, right?
Very much so.
They've invested all this money for what? And who knows? We've seen how many times, Coach, have we talked about a kid coming out of high school? This is the one. This is the guy that's going to change the program, and he never pans out, right? I could name 100 players that have done that. You could too. Yep. So I think it's going to naturally resolve itself with both the settlement and the NIL paying all those players this money. It's just not. This is a one-off, and it's gonna as time goes on, this is going to take care of itself.
Yeah, I agree with you on that too. It's really hard for me to push all my chips in on the table on a kid who's never taken a college snap, who possibly may not even pan out. You can't imagine there's no way to build a culture with your program with that. That's the reason why I'm always going to say the NFL is always going to be over NIL. And if you've got quality kids with high character that don't care about that money on the front end, they want to be developed for the longevity, for the generational money they'll make in the NFL. I think that's something that builds the culture and sustains a college program to its best platform. And I think that's what Coach Smart's doing. I think he's running the business the way it is. Fair weather fans need to get over the Tyler Atkinsons, the Mark Bowmans of the world, the Jackson Cantwells that are taking these big bags, and realize that we've got quality athletes coming in that are hungry. And that's the reason why I hope and see over the next few years, as we see these type of kids that he's talking about, are going to substantiate that culture that you want to have within your program, that makes you proud to see the consistency that comes from that, and not the roller coaster hills that you're going to be on with these programs that seem to be frantically trying to chase, national championships by paying these kids outrageous amounts of money. So, but I appreciate your insight on that as well. All right, guys, we're going to kind of close this up right now. For those of you who have been staying with me as long as you have, I want to say thank you to all of you who are in the chat, whether you're with me on YouTube, Facebook, if you even followed me a little bit on Twitter tonight. I know X typically is not normally a platform that we're on, but is somewhere that I love to be at. Eddie likes to be at as well. If you get a chance, I would like for you to, let's see, I got to point the other direction here. Down here, you can see the QR code on there. That takes you to all of my social media platforms, Coach Hayes Hudl. It lets you see everywhere that I plug in my stuff that I do. My niche is in breaking down plays, and something that Eddie mentioned at the beginning is that I want to try to connect the fans to the fundamentals of football, so that when you do go to the water cooler on Monday morning talking with your buddies, that you have something that you can legitimately say, hey, I know why they did this, or this is why this happened, or whatever it may be. I hope that you have the opportunity to check out my breakdowns this year as we go into the season, where after the game on Saturday, I'll be doing post-game breakdowns on Mondays for what we're going to be hopefully seeing as a win on Saturday evenings. But anyhow, what I was wanting to do real quick, Eddie, is for you to give yourself a plug real quick on, again, what you're doing and where people can find you at on all those social media outlets.
Well, again, Coach, thank you so much for being on your show. I'm really humbled and grateful for you allowing me to do this as a fan.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And I can be followed. My Twitter handle's right there, at Eddie from Mackworth. Peach State Power Hour, live on Sunday nights at 7:30. We'll send out a link. Just like Coach's show here, it's interactive, a lot of chats going on, and we talk about everything. Georgia's a big part of it, but it's Falcons, it's Braves, it's the Hawks, all Atlanta sports. So we try to cover all the bases there, and it's been a lot of fun. So thank Eddie, you so much.
Yeah, man, Eddie, it's been a pleasure too as well. I was going to basically, because we have some people in the chat tonight, was going to see if we had any questions that we could look at before we close the show out. But again, with Paul leaving, you said you had a new guy that was in there with you. What's his name again? Reno?
Harrison Reno.
Harrison
Reno.
Harrison
Reno. Yeah. Harrison R. Reno is how you follow him. And he does a lot of writing for UGA Sports.
Yes. And I caught a little bit of y'all's show the other day. It looked a little bit different without having Paul in there with you. But like I said, I think that y'all did a good job with that. And get a chance anytime you can get some insight, especially outside of the Georgia Forum, which is something that I need a lot because I tend to try to stay away from that. I enjoy y'all's banter, and I get good information from what you guys do, and I appreciate that. I was going to go back to 225 girl right here. Schools like USC, Miami, and Texas players, not all, don't get to compete for spots. It's handed to them. I could sit there and say that these teams, when you see them putting out that enormous amount of money for a kid that they didn't even take official visits, I don't think people realize Tyler Atkins never took.
Hey, Coach, take me off for just a second. I'm sorry. I got to take care of something real quick.
Sure, no problem. Okay. Well, I think he's all right there with his being off screen. Sorry about that, but no worries there on that situation. I hope everything's okay with Eddie. But going back to what you were saying there with that question, what I wanted to say is that when you see people that are throwing these bags out, Tyler Atkinson never even took an official visit to Texas. He shows up right before he makes his commitment, and obviously they wanted to take care of his brand, to take care of that Adidas basically thing that he had more or less appointed himself to and worked out the deal with. And it came to a point of, the money. It was straight up the money. But when I see people like this that get those huge front end deals, that's a shortcut. That's either saying, hey, I don't want to work and try to develop and get better. I just want to see which is my quickest route to starting. That to me, you're not being coached necessarily the best. You're not being developed to your ceiling. And then you end up being a disappointment when it's NFL draft time and you're not making the grade to be a first round, second round kid, which is what most 5-star kids are trying to get to. That's what they're trying to reach for their maximal potential. I think that's the reason why Coach Smart does a great job in his business of what he does is like the CEO of his company in a sense, is that he is trying to make these kids understand that if you have the right attitude and you stay humble and you have that humility, you are going to come in, we are going to develop you. And not only are you still going to get paid, you're going to get paid, but you're going to get paid over a period of time because of what you do. You're not entitled to this money, and you're going to still get paid. And then we're going to develop you into a first round, second round draft pick, and you're going to be making generational money for you and your family for the rest of your life. That's the difference. And that's what it shows in consistency and culture building, like we talked about earlier. I think these people that are trying to take the shortcuts with the bags, you're going to see an up and down roller coaster. You're not going to see that consistency. And it's definitely not proven to build culture when you're throwing that kind of money around for kids that are unproven, haven't shown any development, may be entitled to a certain extent, and are not going to prove themselves and end up like Eddie said a while ago, where you got this 5-star talent and he doesn't even pan out. And that's something I think that's important to understand.
Sorry about that, Coach. I apologize.
Oh, no problem. I didn't know how to take you off the screen, so I just left you sitting there empty. I was just glad. I was worried about you there behind. For a second. Yeah,
no,
it was awesome.
I just had to take care of something with my dog. She was going crazy. No problem.
No worries. Again, thank you guys for being in the chat tonight. This is what drives the show, and I really appreciate you being in here with us. Super Cheese is Sark saving money. Sark saving money on the scouting side by just buying players Kirby wants. That's interesting to hear it that way. I think that. Well, go ahead, Eddie.
I don't know how closely you paid attention to SEC Media Days. You know, Kirby talked about. You may have mentioned this when I was out of the room. I apologize, but relationships versus transactions, right? He was more on the relationship side. And you take a player like Justice Terry or Tyler Atkinson, where Georgia's been recruiting them since the 8th grade, or maybe before that, right? And then the night before, Tyler Atkinson at SEC Media Days decides, well, I'm going to go to Texas. And they barely recruited him. Well, we all know what that is. We all know what he knows what it is. And they don't. Justice Terry said, God told me to go to Texas. And I rolled my eyes. I'm like, come on, not what happened here. Okay. Just admit it. But for Sarkisian to come out and if you recall what he said, I don't know verbatim what he said, Coach, but it was something along the lines of, if a kid's coming here for money, we don't want that type of kid. It was almost like a relational, transactional thing that Kirby said. And I just rolled my eyes. I'm like, are you serious, Sark? It was insulting to me as a fan to hear him say that, because that's all they've done recently is hand them the bag and say, come here, you're getting the money. Okay. And you're not going to win I don't blame the kids that's the way it is now, but you're not going to win every kid like that. Right. Not every kid is interested in building the relationship and all that kind of stuff. They want the money. Fine. That's okay. You know, that's where we are right now, but don't act like that's not a big piece of what you're doing over there, Sarkisian, because that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, it's insincere and it's really like dumbfounding that there's people out there that think that he's actually trying to say some truth and all that. It almost makes him even more fake looking than he already is in a sense. And I really have a hard time dealing with that. And I think Coach Smart's words were very fitting because that was the day Tyler did commit to Texas.
Do you think that was a shot at Tyler Atkinson?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought so too.
And what's so funny too, Coach Smart's not going to quit recruiting Tyler Atkinson.
It's not over.
December's a long way away. I mean, Jackson Cantwell, for all we know, could flip.
Right.
We could have guys flip. James Johnson that flipped to Texas. There's still rumblings out there that he could come back. I mean, there's so many things that happen. But I think when it comes down to it, what we're going to see is that Kirby's system works. I trust him. I think he runs the business the way it should be done. And it's an old school mentality. And you're right. There's going to be some kids that are going to run with that bag because that money is something that they've just never seen before. They don't understand it. But that's the reason why I think you're going to see that consistency, that culture building, the things that we want to see in a program that substantiates it over a period of time instead of just being something that's paper mache and falling through after 1 year. So, again, I think I was looking down through here real quick. Josh Skelton, I had saw your question. Will we install wide zone? I hope that we run some type of outside zone stretch. But I think with Gunner being in there, something I'm going to actually be breaking down soon is I'm going to show you guys something that I think will be very beneficial because it's basically 3 plays happening at one time. It's basically like the triple option of the old days. It's called bash counter, where basically you can you're reading one guy to either hand it on the jet, pull it as a quarterback and run counter behind your guard and H pulling or your guard and tackle pulling, or you can pull off of that and run an RPO with it as well. And you're reading one guy or basically through two to do this. So it's kind of like the triple option of the 21st century, where you're getting that. And I'm going to show you something that goes with that. But it would be nice if we actually ran a lot of more stretch outside zone type stuff. I'll really be surprised right now as we seem to be very inside zone and duo heavy. So we'll just have to see as that goes. It will be very comforting for me to see us try to change up what we do and run more gap scheme versus just zone type plays as well. I do appreciate. Let's see what we got right here. Another one. Let's see what comment. That seems to be the way Ellis Robinson is thinking. That's going back to the mentality of getting to play. Let's see. Jackson Cantwell. Let's be honest too. Cantwell is a right tackle at best. Paying a right tackle that much is insane. I have to say that probably your tackle position, believe it or not, Josh, is one of the most expensive players you want in the NFL. In the NFL,
it certainly is in the NFL. Yeah,
that's important because especially left tackle to a right-handed quarterback because he guards the blind side. So tackle position, believe it or not, is very important. And honestly, because of the downplay of Ernest Green last year and Monroe Freeling seemingly playing, it felt like with one arm tied behind his back, considering he had to have labral surgery, our decrease in tackle play last year really hurt us throwing the ball later in the year as well. So, that's something that's got to reestablish itself. We've got to solidify those tackle positions. Green needs to return to form. Monroe needs to grow up this year. From last year and learn from his mistakes. And we could see definitely some good things happening. I get what you're saying, Josh. He's saying, but at right tackle, I get it. I think what you're going to see is Monroe Freeling at left tackle and Green over Ernest Green, not Justin Green, Ernest Green over at right tackle. I think honestly across the board, I'm going to do this in my lineman breakdown, but I think you're going to see Monroe Freeling at left tackle. You're going to see Micah Morris at left guard, Drew Bobo at center, Daniel Calhoun at right guard, and Ernest Green at right tackle. Right now, if they were to play tomorrow, I think that's going to be your starting five. But I'm going to be doing that breakdown later and talking to you about where I think they're going to be at as well. So, but anyhow, let's see. What do we got right here? As a Georgia Southern grad from the Paul Johnson era, sign me up. I get you, buddy. I appreciate y'all being in the chat tonight. I can't thank you enough for all your comments. The one thing that I have a bad habit of is I want to talk to everybody because, like I said, I'm just one of those kind of social butterflies. But I have a show to do. We're way over an hour. We're an hour and 15 minutes, but I don't care. I've had a hell of a time tonight. I've enjoyed my time with Mr. Eddie. Again, he's already plugged where you can find him out. Please make sure that you take the time to look for him, look for his socials, plug in with what he does with the Peach State Power Hour. I am Chris Hayes at Coach Hayes Hudl. You've been with me tonight where I'm trying to always connect the fans to the fundamentals of football. Eddie, thank you for being on with me. And
thank you, Coach.
No problem. I hope you guys have a wonderful night.